welcome to another edition of Ascend. And I'm here with my amazing, lovely, awesome, beautiful co-host, Marlene Cruz.
Oh my God, it never goes old.
No, never.
It really never goes
No,
old.
I'll keep adding.
Yeah, you do keep adding. And you had a swing to it.
Yeah.
We had an amazing event yesterday, out of this world.
Out of this world. If you've never been to one of our events, you need to make sure you come out to the next one. It was for SOS Magazine, and we were celebrating International Women's Month. And it was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
People are raving about it. I know some people have already started posting on social media. So do come, do check it out, join our community and find out about the next one because you don't want to miss it.
Absolutely. And talking about amazing, we have an amazing guest today.
Yes, we do.
We have another Sifu in the
Another
house,
Sifu
ladies
in the
and
house,
gentlemen.
absolutely.
We got two Sifus for you today.
2 for 1.
2 for 1. Tell us about him.
We have Sifu Kwazi, and today we're going to be talking about mastering the art of creativity and discipline. He studies the art of Eagle Claw Kung Fu Ying Jow Pai.
Oh, okay.
How
We
are
need
you
to
guys?
know what that means, but okay.
How are you guys?
Welcome.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
We're great. It's a pleasure to have you here as well.
No,
So-
nice to be here.
I guess we should start with life growing up, like before we
Sure.
get into everything. Like,
Sure.
what was life for you? Now, you're a New Yorker, right?
Yeah. Originally a New Yorker. I was actually born in Wisconsin, but I was only living there for like 3 years of my life. But a majority of the time I was in New York, growing up in the Queens area. I basically so my parents split up in an early age. Lived with my mom for a little bit, and then my dad came back in the scene because long story short, my mother was having some issues and she got ill for a while, so my dad had to come in and take me under his wing and live with him the rest of the time. And we, my dad was a physician, so it was kind of tough. I was kind of like a latchkey kid at an early age, so he would be out at the hospital doing his thing, all day, and I'd go from school to babysitters and then finally back home. So and then my dad remarried, and we moved out of like the Corona area, and then we moved like a little to Laurelton for a while. They got a house. So then one of my first siblings was born in '84. So then I had a partner in crime. So it was kind of cool. I became a big brother. Yes. And then I moved on and went to elementary and all that, and junior high school and high school in New Rochelle because my folks moved to Westchester in the later '80s. So I did all that schooling there, and then finally went to University of Southern California, so USC, in '91. And then that's what my California stint started. So yeah, growing up was definitely interesting. I grew up a Mets fan. Sorry, Yankees fans.
Hey.
I was a Shea Stadium kid, man. I was
Those
right
are
across from the
fighting
park.
words right
Yeah.
there.
I know, right? Yeah. So.
That's great. So when did Kung Fu enter your life?
Oh, so here's the funny thing, right? Like, unlike you, I know you started like as a kid, but I always wanted to do Kung Fu or martial arts because like everyone's got a Bruce Lee story, right?
Right.
But mine was more The Last Dragon, seeing Timac in theaters, seeing that
Really?
movie. Yeah. So I went to the movie. I still remember, went to the movies to see that movie, and I was like so hooked. And then if you remember in that movie, they show all the clips from a couple of clips from the Bruce Lee movies. And then I
Right.
started watching the Bruce Lee movies and all that stuff. So I was just immersed from then wanting to do it. But I never actually did it at that time. I was into other sports. I ran track, played basketball, all that sort of stuff. So finally, I just always had this like, I always wanted to do martial arts. When I moved to California, I met a guy who actually trained and said, hey, if you're interested, come check out my school. He did Uechi-ryu karate. So for anybody listening, that's the karate. So if you're familiar with the Karate Kid, Cobra Kai, that's the main system that Daniel used to do with Mr. Miyagi taught him. So it's an Okinawan art. So I started with that. And this was in the early 90s.
Very heavy Chinese roots in Wei Chi.
Yes. So that was all the stuff we learned the katas, we learned, breaking boards, all that stuff.
Katas are the movements for those that don't know.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. So I started with that, and that only lasted like a year plus. So I got up to like blue belt in that. But I never really felt like at home as much as I liked, actually doing the training. So then fast forward, I moved to Pasadena, California, and I finally was like, I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to find a Kung Fu school. So I opened up the Yellow Pages, if people remember the Yellow Pages, right?
Oh, wow.
Before Google. And I found my Sifu, my instructor, in the Yellow Pages. I looked him up and I was like, wow, it's like the guys in Pasadena. Let me give him a call. Called him, came into the school, met with him. And my Sifu's actually name is his Ken Edwards. And for those unaware, he was actually in the Mortal Kombat movie, that 95 movie. He played that character Art, the one black guy in the movie, basically, is him. So anyway, I started training with him. And that's when my Kung Fu journey kind of started. So he was doing Walam, which is praying mantis system at the time, and then he transferred over to do Ying Jow Pai, which is Northern Eagle Claw. So that's what Ying Jow Pai means. So that's the Northern Eagle Claw system from Longsham. And then from there, I just kept going with it. So I moved. I got a job in Florida in 2000 and I want to say 2001. So I had a stint where I really wasn't training because I was looking for an instructor in Florida. I didn't really find one, but I would fly back and forth to keep because my first black belt I got in 2001. So I would fly back on weekends sometimes to finish the training. And then I actually got my first black belt at the end of 2001, which was crazy. It was a crazy time because I was right after 9/11. So people weren't really flying like that during the last, that last couple months. But yeah, so I got my first black belt then. And then in 2002, I started my job at Clear Channel Radio in New York. So I moved again. And when I got there, that's when I was like, okay, now I can train at the headquarters because I'm in New York. And I continued from there. So my Kung Fu journey kind of went that way. It went from West Coast to East Coast, but then I continued with the same style on the East Coast, and then eventually kept training and got to instructor level. There's a master level, which I did in 2013. Wow. And so on and so on. So yeah, that's really how that happened. Yeah.
That's interesting because we have two Sifus here that both connect martial arts and media, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, right?
It is. Because that's another world you dive into very, very much.
Yes, ma'am.
So
yes, ma'am.
because those two things are very different. So how did you kind of get involved with media as well?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story because I went to school for fine arts. I got a BFA, so fine arts at USC, and I used to paint and draw as a kid. I was into comic books and all that, so I really was heavy on the art side. And I always thought I was going to go into graphic design, but I did college radio because I always was interested in radio, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And you know how like when you're on campus, they put out flyers at the time, like, hey, come check this club out, that club out, see if you're interested. So they had an announcement for, hey, like if you're a freshman or whatever year you are, come check out the student radio station and see if you might be interested in a position here. So I went, they had a meeting, and I told the guy, hey, I want to try this out. And they put me on a show with one of the guys just to learn the ropes. And then it wasn't long. Like literally, they were like, "All right, so you want your own show?" And I'm like, "Okay, I guess." I really didn't know what I was doing. But they just because college radio, they just want recruits, right? They just want people to just be there, bodies in the door, so they can keep playing the music, right? So yeah, that's how I started like learning about radio. But then from there, I needed to finish up a couple credits after I graduated, and instead of going the route of doing an internship in media or in marketing or advertising at the time, because I was actually working for McCann Erickson, for people familiar with that advertising agency. But I took an internship at a local radio station out here in LA. And they got back to me. It took a while, but I got a call back from the APD, the assistant program director. He's like, "Hey, I sent him an air check and a resume." He's like, "Hey, I got your resume and your stuff. I would love to come. I'd love to meet you. Are you available to come into the station?" I was like, "Absolutely," because at the time I was working at the advertising agency, but I was also working another job, trying to make ends meet. And I was like, "Hey, I want to get this internship anyway and check it out." So I went in there, did the interview. They liked me, and I was literally on answering phones for a Friday night show. I want to say that following week. So it started from there. And that's how I started, basically being in the building at the radio station. And it was interning at first. So yeah, basically working for free, but working to get your credits. And then that just kind of evolved. I was on answering phones at this, it was like a Friday night mix show kind of thing. So for 4 hours, it was 2 hours from 10 to 12, then 12 to 2. That 12 to 2 show, they used to have guests in, right? So when the guests would come in, the hosts were like, hey, we need you to get some drops for us. And at the time I was like, well, how do I do it? They're like, just get them hit record and play. We had reel to reel at the time. Hit record and play on the reel to reel. Make sure the mic, you got levels on it, and then just hit record and play, and then stop at the end. Right, go. So I was like, okay. So I would do that, and then sort of kind of work my way around. But then I talked to the assistant, the programming assistant. I'm like, hey, I need to kind of know what I'm doing. And she's like, why don't you shadow our commercial director? Like, if you have time during the week, can you come in once or twice a week? I'm like, sure. So I fit that in my schedule, and I started shadowing the commercial director, production director, and he showed me more of the ropes on the technical side. Okay, this is how you actually, record spots. And then I would help, the record spots, go through the logs every day, the commercial logs, and, put at the time we had carts. So you had to cart up the commercials and all that stuff. So and then when we actually changed buildings at the station, and when we changed buildings, that's when we started to actually advance as far as the technology went. That was the first time I used an editing system, Pro Tools. So for those familiar, so I got acclimated with that at the same time. So everyone was kind of on the same level. It just so happened when that happened. So I got to learn that system from the bottom up, and I still use it today for editing.
That's awesome. I was just going to ask you that. How has things transformed and changed? Because obviously you're still in media, so you never look back actually, because you're still.
I stuck with it. I basically just had to take a leap of faith, because what ended up happening was I got so, just kind of entrenched on the radio side, where they were asking me to do more and more and more stuff. And it was like, okay, I had this 9 to 5. So I would come in the morning. Yeah, that was the other thing that happened. It's kind of weird. So I was doing the answering the phones on the weekend, on the Friday, and then the going and shadowing the commercial directors and all that during the week, a couple hours. And then the morning show wanted somebody in there to help. We had a morning show at the time. They used to do bits, like recorded bits. So they needed a person to help with that. So I started working in the morning. So it'd be a crazy day. I'd start like 6 in the morning, work like 2.5 hours or 3 hours, then go to my 9 to 5. And sometimes I come back to the radio station. And so it was nuts. So finally it was like just too much. I was like, I needed to get some sleep, right? So I just had to take a leap of faith. Yeah, I was like, literally, I got to take a leap of faith. I wasn't really making any money at the radio station, but I'm like, I can't keep this up. So I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to just put it out, and, hey, I got faith, this will evolve into something else. And I just, I went ahead and resigned at the advertising agency and just did the radio thing for a little while.
So it did evolve into something else. What are you currently doing?
So now I am the imaging director, or creative service director at iHeart Radio in Los Angeles. I've been here for 10 years exactly. I came back to LA in 2015.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a journey. When I started, it was Clear Channel. So 2002 in New York, it was Clear Channel, and then they changed the name years back to iHeart. Most people are familiar with iHeart because of the app and online and all that stuff. But yeah, that's how it all got started. Yeah, for me in radio, and just kept with it. So it's kind of crazy.
How has the discipline of martial arts helped you with the discipline of creativity, like the merging of the two, right? Yeah. And working in media, using the skills that we learn from martial arts, because martial arts is so much more than punching and kicking, right?
Oh, absolutely.
How has it served you or helped you?
It's, honestly, with your self-confidence right away, I'd say there's nothing like, martial arts. And I tell people now, because I do a lot of instructing like you do, Sifu. So it's great to see when you get somebody fresh and new that may not have as much confidence, they're not sure of their body and all that stuff, and they start working and getting better and better. So I think the same thing happened for me as I was kind of evolving in martial arts, getting more confident, gaining more skills. It kind of like things would mirror on the my actual actual work side, where I'd say, well, you know what, I want to go for another not even position, but say something would open up in another market where I could add on to my skills, and I would pitch things to my boss or things like that. And because of the martial arts like discipline, or because because I had that confidence, that spilled over into the workplace, and it still does. It's like, I think that's just one thing that works hand in hand as you get more confident with like who you are. And it's not necessarily because you think, oh, I think I'm bad and all that, but you just feel like you're more sure of yourself. So that kind of spills over, and I think that definitely spilled over into the workplace, where I'm just like, okay, I don't feel intimidated, like, by like even your higher ups. It's like, they're people just like me, so like I communicate very well with them, and they do with me, and there's that respect level. And if there's not, then I'm like, hey, I'm first one to be like, hey, I don't like something, or that's not cool, or whatever. So
That's important.
yeah.
Absolutely. So I see the difference personally between the older generation as it pertains to discipline and the younger generation. And since you are, teaching in martial arts and you're also involved in media, and you just talked about the synergy between the discipline and things like that, have you seen any generational differences as it pertains to discipline? I see your face.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think, and yes, I mean, it's definitely different. So as far as the martial arts goes, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Social media. I think that's the big difference. So more people are now influenced by social media. When I started, we didn't have Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. It was just pretty much, like I said, I found my Sifu through the yellow pages. Now people just Google you, look you up on YouTube or whatever format, right?
Yellow pages, what?
What exactly, right? What is that? When you had landlines in your phone and all, what? Like, so I think this generation, hey, listen, and bless their hearts, they've got access to so much, but people expect a lot more, if that makes sense. So it's like they come in thinking, oh, I'm going to be Jackie Chan in 2 weeks if I take your style, because I saw you online and you guys look great, and that's good, but you still have to put in the work, right? Nothing has changed since I started in the early 90s to 2025. The work has to come. It's like, without the work, and basically, like Sifu Romain will tell you, Kung Fu basically translates into discipline through hard work. It's like mastery through hard work. It's like you can't get to a high level without the work. So I think that's kind of a misconception with the newer generation, but they learn, if you want to keep with it and get good at this, you actually have to put that in as part of your regimen, right? So I think that's probably one of the big differences between the generations. And so technology, it's the blessing and the curse, right?
Yeah. And so moving into challenges in life, because our show is called Ascend, so we want to talk about some of the challenges that you face. And obviously it must have been challenging going from your mom to your dad. But then your dad, I guess, did he have an influence in what you're doing now, even though he was a physician, or did somebody else?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, yes, absolutely. So yes, like I mentioned before, I grew up mainly with my father, and there's no doubt that even though growing up was tough at the time, because I was more of a latchkey kid and he had so much to do with his job, the work ethic between him and my grandfather, actually, most of the men in my family, they just got a solid work ethic. It takes a lot to become a doctor, right? So that stress on education and all that was always been just a mainstay in our family. Even for my grandfather was an educator. He worked at the public school system in Ohio for many, many years. He worked at the post office as well, but his work ethic was solid. His brother, same thing. My uncle. So yes. So to answer your question, yeah, growing up with a father who was a physician and very good at his job, but would find the balance, especially in his later years, balancing out family. I definitely took to that and learned a lot. My dad's a very educated man, so a lot of questions that I would have, even when I was in school, I'd be in biology class, not able to figure stuff out, and have the book open. He'd be like, "Well, this is actually this." I'm like, right. It's like, okay, great. It's easy for you, Dad, because he's like, you do this for a living, but for me, it's like, this all looks like, like Roman letters. Like, what's going on here? This looks like Sanskrit to me. But anyway,
so you had a lot of great male influences, and on the other side of it, since it is International Women's Day, right? Talked about this yesterday. My dad introduced me to martial arts because he took me to my first Bruce Lee movie, but it was my mom who enrolled me.
Oh, wow.
Set me on my path for my purpose.
There you go.
So So how about the women in your life, and how did they influence you creatively or just artistically or in any way, shape, or form?
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
right. Tell us about it. Tell
Oh,
us about it.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So on the flip side, so since here's the other great thing. Since my dad was so busy as a kid during the summer, because it was just him and I for a while, he would send me to my grandparents in Ohio for the summer break. So I would have 3 months where I would live with my grandparents out in Ohio, and my grandmother basically was home all day while my grandfather worked. But the beauty of that was, aside from doing stuff in the house, and she was always busy doing errands and all that, but she loved spending time with me. She was really great at art herself, so that influence creatively a lot came from her and kind of emulating the things she would do. I think I got really into art because of her. She was actually, even though she didn't formally like draw or paint, she would kind of sketch things, and she was good at that. Or she was creative, like she put together stuff for like the PTA meeting stuff, and she put together all these elaborate kind of like design pieces or whatever, or just come up with creative things. I remember even my when my aunt got married, one of her daughters got married, she even kind of like designed some of the things for like like the napkin settings and all that stuff. She had the design in mind and all that. So I had those influences, and also because we were like a pretty tight knit family. So my grandparents, actually, this is funny, they lived on the same street as my grandmother's sister, my aunt. They were literally up the street. And then my grandmother's other sister, my other aunt, lived on the adjoining street that was like literally 2 blocks away. So I was always in that circle. Like one of either my aunts were around or my grandmother, and their influence was also great. So on the creative side and educational side, I had another aunt who also worked in the school system. So she would take me to her classes sometimes or whatever. She was teaching summer school. She was really into animals. She had like 2 dogs. So I think I got that from her. So I had all these like great female influences, and like the influences from women in my family. And then also like their friends, a lot of my grandparents' friends, like they also had people who were either in the education system or going into it, or that worked in different jobs that were creative as well. So I know they had a neighbor, I remember, who was an engineer. And I can't remember what kind of engineer she was, but she would come to the house every now and then and just talk to me. Like, and when you're a kid, it's like you're a kid with like older folks. It's just like everyone gravitates to the kids. So it's like everyone kind of wants to talk to you, and just kind of like, because everyone's like, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? And what do you think of this? Since everyone's asking your opinions, like, I don't know, but I'm thinking of this. The biggest question I used to get when I was a kid was, you going to be a doctor like your dad? And I'd be like, I don't think so.
Isn't that a very common question?
Oh my God.
Are you
So
going to
common.
follow those footsteps? But in many ways you did. Like you mentioned about balance, that you kind of seen that influence with your dad. Can you speak on that? Because I think that's very important, especially in a society like today where we are being pulled in so many directions, right? We have social media, we have work, we have family life. You are in 2 worlds in terms of your profession in martial arts and media. So how do you balance that out?
Yeah, so back to the question you have is really great, because the influences I mentioned before from my dad, not only the work ethic, but just having somebody who, since we grew up together, or I grew up with him, and it was just him and I for a little while. And even when he remarried, we always stay close, and we still have a close relationship. He's always been that person that I can call, and like when I need advice, or I run stuff by him or whatever. So like on the martial arts journey, I would always tell him about things in that field, and he's always told me, hey, I'm so proud of you. This is definitely not my world, but I love seeing what you do and everything. But on the flip side, as far as the media side goes, I definitely would like kind of bend his ear a little bit. Hey, hey, Dad, I'm thinking like I got offered this position. What do you think? And he'd say, hey, there's the pros and cons. It was the standard. Hey, get your sheet of paper out, put the pros on one side, the cons on another. Here's things to look for, and when you're picking a job, especially out of state, and things that you can ask for, and things to keep in mind as you're trying to build up for your future. So that kind of influence has always been great. Having my dad at my side like that. And someone who's just so learned and great in his field and doing what he does. It definitely has made a difference in my life. But the balance question, to answer your question, it's like anything else. You kind of figure it out, and hopefully you're not doing too much of one thing, so you still have a social life too, right? Because actually, like I got plans. I'm getting married next year and all that stuff. So you still have
Yay!
to juggle your.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
You want to
So
shout
yeah,
her out?
I'm sorry. Say it
You want
again.
to shout her out?
Oh yeah, sure. My fiance, her name's Diane Franco. Yes, yeah. So we've been together for that's another quick. I'll give you this quick story. We actually met at the radio station in '99, one of the radio stations I worked at. And we dated then. And then we broke up for whatever reason at the time, but we stayed in contact. We stayed friends. So over the years, we've just always like kind of stayed, in touch. And a few years ago, when I came back to California, we were definitely in touch. But a few years ago, we really just started spending a lot more time together, and things evolved from there. And then, lo and behold, 3 years, and then we're engaged. So there you go. It's one of those kind of full circle things, right?
That's awesome. That's a great
It's a
story,
great
though.
story.
Yeah.
You guys have to say that, and when you get married. And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people definitely will know the story for sure. Yes.
You mentioned about your dad and your, all the influence you had around you, the
Yeah.
influences. What nuggets of wisdom that you have gotten from them you can share with us?
Oh man, that's a good one. Let's see. It's just so many good ones. Okay, so my grandmother was always big on being patient and not necessarily just going for the the opportunities that come to you. Like what's meant for you is meant for you, right? So her thing was always be patient and really assess things and really do what's right for you. Like, so the nugget of wisdom from her was always that patient factor, and always it costs nothing to be kind. So she's still alive, actually. She's a very kind person, and just a magnanimous person. Will give you literally the shirt off her back if you needed it. So I think a lot of that is part of my personality, growing up around such an influential lady, and just a kind-hearted person. So that nugget of wisdom from her, and just the way she would make everyone, all of her grandchildren, feel very special, even though she'd tell you in her own way, "You're my favorite 13-year-old grandchild. You're my favorite 11-year-old grandchild." So it was never "you're my favorite grandkid," but it was that special way. But when you heard the words, you thought, "Oh, I'm grandma's favorite," right? So
I like how she did it, because she did it in a way.
Smart.
Yeah, she said it different things to different people. So,
exactly.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah, and she's just a naturally funny person. So I think I mean, I'm no comedian or whatever, but I do love to laugh like most people do, and I like to, if I could get a laugh here and there, I will try. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that's always rubbed off on me. As far as other nuggets of wisdom, my dad definitely, I owe a lot to him. So probably one of the things that outside of the work ethic, though, that it's interesting too. So it's two-parter. Like my dad, I definitely got nuggets of wisdom from him, but my grandfather always gave me really good nuggets of the times I would spend with him during the summers. I learned how to drive. My grandfather actually taught me how to drive when I was 14.
Wow.
So a lot of advice. One of my dad's favorite expressions, both him and my grandfather were always like, drive as if everyone else is an idiot on the road, even though they're not. You just assume they are. So,
I mean, that's good
right.
advice.
Right. That's great advice, right?
Yeah.
So especially, I don't know if you guys have been out to LA lately. Driving out here is a mess. So it's and as is in the tri-state, New York, Jersey, it's challenging, but LA is just its own animal, man. So that was always a great nugget. It's words of wisdom here and there would just be nuggets of advice on college life at the time when I was going through things, or having patience at my in my job with things would be things weren't kind of going my way. I would always get little nuggets of wisdom. But again, my dad's always been in my corner. I could always pick up the phone and with anything and just ask him. So that's been great. Yeah,
that's awesome. Last night at our event, there was a lot of conversation because we had some educators there, and one of the things that they were talking about was how important the arts are to education. Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, sure. Oh yeah. So it's the give back factor, right? So in martial arts, the good thing is it's like hand in hand with you are educating, you are teaching. As a matter of fact, and I do teaching now, so I instruct like 3 days a week, almost four now. And the give back factor is just so, to me, that's one of the most rewarding parts of it. Like I mentioned earlier, I love, being able to see somebody come in fresh in the door that may not have that confidence or whatever. You build them up, whether, and different people, different body types, all that stuff. And everyone comes into the martial arts with different things in mind, what they want out of it. And a common question we'll ask, because actually now I didn't mention this, but I also train in Krav Maga. So I've been, both practicing that art and teaching that art for the
And
last.
that is what?
So Krav Maga is an Israel. Sorry, there. Yeah, I got to drop. Yeah, I'm
For
sorry.
us
Yeah,
that are not
that's
martial
an
artists.
so that's an Israeli martial art, right? And it's more military based. It literally translates into contact combat. But it's more of a like a just kind of like a self defense kind of geared kind of style. So but back I know all these terms. She's like, what this Ying Jow that? Yeah. But anyway, on the education side, I think it's that, right? It's the connection, because the give back, when you are teaching people, when you are part of their growth, when you are helping to help someone become more confident, become more adept, whether it's the self-defense knowledge, like you impart things with them where it's like you give them that little key to something, and then they start training on their own, and you see them grow, and maybe there's something you say or say a different way to them that helps them to connect something, where it's like that aha moment we like to say sometimes, where you I'm sure you can relate to the Sifu Romaine, where maybe a student's kind of struggling with a particular, I don't know, like a technique or something, and you spin it a different way, or you articulate it a different way where it finally connects, and maybe like you've said something funny to them or something as you're describing the technique or as you're trying to teach it or something. Those moments are great. So the connection to me in the education side is you are actually educating as you are teaching, just like people in the regular school systems do every day, and teachers have to come up with all these different ways to keep their students interested, because it's just a different time now with social media, so everyone's kind of a little ADD in their own world, and they got that like couple minutes, and they lose their attention span so low. So I think it's the same struggle in martial arts. We deal with that all the time, as I'm sure Sifu Romaine can attest to. It's like it's keeping people's attention long, and it's a retention game too with martial arts. It's like you'll get people in that are promising, and they may stay with you for a little bit, then all of a sudden they just disappear, and then you give them a call. Hey, what happened to Johnny such and such? Oh, sorry, Sifu, we moved, or oh, sorry, like if you've got like a kids program, little Scotty, started doing soccer more, and he likes that more, and so you always deal with that. So it's always a challenge as martial arts instructors to keep evolving and get better, not only skill wise but teaching wise and program wise, to keep people interested and staying. The retention game is a tough one. Yeah.
Is that challenge also true in media, since media is advancing and changing and evolving? I mean, media has evolved so much, right? So is that also true in media?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's interesting, because I think media, yes, it definitely, things have changed both technology wise and the ways people listen now. It's not just in your car or at your house. Now you've got all these other outlets through social media, the Spotify's, the Pandoras, all those things. So it's more competitive now, right? So in radio before, you really just had to worry about the other stations in your market. Now it's more worldwide. Now it's more national. You're dealing with all these other outlets where you can get the same songs, the same, like kind of programming. The difference has been, I think, especially with iHeart over the last few years, we've really kind of honed in on more of the personalities, because that's at least one thing that we have that's like special or unique to our brands, right? So we can say that we've got, like for instance, with iHeart, we've got the Breakfast Club, they're in New York. We've got this, but they're not only in New York, but you can hear them nationally. Or we've got Big Boy out here in LA, but you not only can hear him in LA, but you can hear him nationally. So there's been that kind of move over the last few years to really zone in on the air talent that, but also the content that they bring and what's unique about the content that they bring. So that's definitely something that's kind of switched around and changed up over the years, because you have to, because of, like you're saying, things have changed with the competition. The field is just a lot larger than it was back in when I started in like the mid 90s. Yeah, that's when I started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I tell us about Kung Fu Chronicles and how that came about, but also this idea of being in the media and how media has changed so much, and so many people now are podcasting and doing different shows. Can you speak to some of that?
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like almost everybody is like podcasting, right? Which is cool. It's a good and a bad thing. It's good to me because it's a creative outlet. So back to the themes of today, the creative outlet. So for me, Kung Fu Chronicles happened at my YouTube page twofold. One, because the pandemic was going on, so a lot of people were just at their homes, working from home, needing outlets. I personally needed one, but I had always thought about having my own YouTube page even before the pandemic. I just not had the real clear motivation or that one like thing that was like, all right, now we're going to start today. Because of the pandemic though, it was like I'd had stuff in mind, and I remember I had a script written for like a weapon series I wanted to do, and I kept writing this script down, and I kept saying, okay, one day I'll film it, I'll do it. The pandemic hits, and I'm like, you know what, there's no time like the present, let's just get it going. So that was my motivation and start. But also it's the give back. I was like, I wanted to think of this as not only a page or a channel where I could display what I do, but also if I'm able to give back in ways of, whether I can do tutorials online, or also, and like with you, Sifu, remain spotlight different martial artists, and especially the martial artists of color that have really been doing this, that I think have not truly gotten their shine over the years. So I started with local when I first started the channel. I did the tutorial thing and I still do that, but I also really kind of have a series that I call 5 questions for Kung Fu masters, or 5 crucial questions. So Sifu Romain was a guest of mine, like I think it was like 2 years ago now. So but I started with my instructor first, and I built it up from there. So I went from him, I did an interview with him, and then he knows a lot of people, obviously, that are also instructors and martial artists. So from his kind of a list, and his friends, I started interviewing those guys, and it was almost like they tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends. So it was like people would reach out to me, hey, I saw that you interviewed my friend such and such. Hey, would you be interested? And we do this style. And then I would start thinking about people in different states. So since we were all kind of stuck with the pandemic, Zoom was a thing. Everyone was doing like we're doing today, like just turning on their computers and clicking the Zoom link, and then, hey, I'm talking to somebody who's in New York or who's in Texas. So it started, basically with that idea. The give back factor was really big, and I still do that series. So I actually just finished doing the 30th episode of that series,
Nice.
which is great. And it's great to me, again, to just spotlight, especially the men and women of color who've been real prominent in the martial arts, who may not have gotten their just due, I think, sometimes. So yeah, that's really was the motivation.
It's a great blend of your media and martial arts, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Interviewing all of these masters, what would you say is your biggest takeaways?
Great.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's a lot, actually. Well, a few good ones. So it depends on who you talk to. Everybody has something special to give you. But I think that the overlying theme is basically the perseverance thing. That everybody that I've interviewed who's just attained a higher level of success has had some sort of adversity they've had to conquer at a point, get past, and how they do that, how they stay on the road. Always martial arts is involved, just like I was saying earlier with my journey, how I relate martial arts and the confidence level with my job. They'll have similar stories where, yeah, I may have lost my job or this happened in my life or whatever, but that martial arts discipline helped me in so many ways to keep on the path or whatever. So different nuggets for different people. I talked to, I don't know if you're familiar with Grandmaster Linda Denley, who is the first Black woman to actually be.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was on the U.S. team with her.
Nice.
Sweet. Yes. So she's amazing. The first Black woman to be inducted into the Martial Arts Black Belt Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yes,
still,
yes,
is it,
yes.
No,
yeah.
She is phenomenal.
Amazing.
Wow.
So
Champion. I mean, she's the real deal. She's no joke.
yeah, she's just been like a champion of like so much stuff. If you Google her, you'll just see all these accolades pop up. But anyway, talking, and she actually did a quick stint in the movie. She was in one of Jackie Chan's movie, Armor of God. So she's been doing her thing quite a while. But I bring her up because like her story was
Classy
so
lady. She's first class. She's a classy lady.
Yes. I bring her up though because it's so funny because of interviewing her. I still stay in touch with her. Like it's so cool. It's like almost like she's like the aunt, the older aunt, like that's like the always smells you up and kind of buzz you, and she's got that like that southern vibe. So she's just like, hey honey, what are you up to? Or what are you doing? And it's just like she's so cool, right? You're just like, and then there's part of me, it's surreal to me. I'm talking to Linda Deadly, like she's a legend.
Right.
She's up here talking to me like we're relatives, but she's so cool like that, right? So, but I've gotten so many nuggets from her because her story is just so amazing. Being a woman and a woman of color, getting to that higher level.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
wow, we need to interview her. We need to have her on the set.
Yeah, we should.
You should. I'll give you guys her contact. She'd be an amazing interviewing for you guys. But yeah, there's but yeah. So I'm sorry. What was the other part of your question? So I don't forget.
It was what were some of the most interesting facts or things that you learned from interviewing these people?
So yeah, so back to that, yeah. So blending the two and the interesting things I've learned from different people, but also the networking. I think that's one of the most interesting things that's happened because just like I mentioned with the Linda Denley thing, because of her, she has so many contacts with in the martial arts world. She linked me up to people like Billy Blanks, all the people that she knows. I'd interview Cynthia Rothrock. She's good friends with her. There's all those connections. Like even when we talked offline, like talking with people, Shannon Lee's people and all that. So again, big circles, but the 6 degrees of separation. And I found that to be a very interesting and kind of a cool thing. Just like, like networking in media, it's always the whole thing. It's sometimes who you know, not what, like the who you know factor. And it can help a whole lot, especially when you're like especially getting interviews and things like that, because there's always someone who knows somebody or at least knows a person
like that. I feel like you can go anywhere in the world and find another martial artist and they'll always be willing to help.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's true, and that's the martial way, right? We should always be trying to help our fellow man and help each other get to that higher level. So
I love that, the martial way.
Yes,
Sifu's way, the Sifu's way.
Yeah, our seafood swag, right?
That's awesome.
Yes.
For the young adults out there that are watching, or people in general that want to get into martial arts and want to get into media, right? They want to become a Sifu or a master in media. What advice can you give them since you have like so much that you're merging here?
Yeah, so I'd say especially martial arts, no matter what, there's never an age to me where you can't do it. So I have people that will come in at like in their later 60s and there's some in their 20s, some that are super young. There's like we'll tell people there are certain things that, okay, it's definitely a little easier if you start earlier, but it's not saying you can't master those things. If you're willing to put in the work, anything's possible to me. The martial arts can do so much and change people's lives in so many different ways. So I always give the people advice of you're never too young or old to start. If you're willing to put in the work, anything can be done. And then maybe even you may not stay with a particular art for a lifetime, but maybe that will inspire you to take even a different art that really kind of gravitate towards. So I say that to say, like in my journey, like I told you guys earlier, I started in karate. I liked it, but I found something that I loved, but it was still in the martial art vein, right? So advice there, honestly, is really just being willing to put in the work on the martial arts side, no matter what discipline you train, and staying humble. There's always something that people can learn, even as a black belt instructor level. There's always things. We have a saying when we come on the mat, especially during when I teach my fight classes. Hey, there's no egos. We don't bring egos onto the mat. I'm a whatever belt here. You're a blue belt, yellow belt. on the mat, there's no belts, there's no egos. We can
Love it.
learn from each other. Different people come into our school with different experiences. You may have a experience in boxing or wrestling that you come in and you're better at grappling because of your experiences. So we always take that into consideration, and we always kind of lay it out. This is an equal playing field as far as when we actually get on the mat and are together, and we're trying to learn from each other. The advice on the media side, though, is, really using the power of the networking, staying humble in the beginning, because you're probably going to have to take a job that's one of those, like as a PA or something. You're getting coffee for people, you're doing the grunge work, all that, but be willing to do that, because that's how you get your foot in the door. That's how you move up. There's really no way to cut around that, unless you've just got a family member that can just throw you in there or something like that. You've got that kind of connect. More than likely, most people's stories start at the bottom, where we had to find a gig where it was like, okay, you can be a PA for this job, or if you're in a movie studio, or you're an intern at this radio station and you work your way in. Be willing to do that, and be humble enough to come in the door and say, hey, I'm just here to learn. I want to just take in as much as possible. Be that sponge on that sponge level, and then you'll see things, and people will notice. The people always notice the people that really, really work hard.
That's true.
No matter what. It's like, okay, how did such and such happen? Oh, that person did that. Really? Okay, let me learn more about this. What do they do? Who are you? And then you'll start meeting. And as you take advantage of the fact, especially in the media world, as you're coming in, even as a PA or whatever, or assistant or intern, you're getting to meet and kind of like hobnob and shake hands with different people that are on these higher levels. So take advantage of that and try to, ask as many questions as possible, learn from these people that have been doing it for a whole lot longer than you have. And
the power of proximity, right?
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
very, very important. And you mentioned something so key, because a lot of people feel a little bit entitled, right? Especially on the younger side, the younger generations. It is important for them, like you mentioned, to know the importance of placing themselves in different positions, whether you are carrying the coffee for somebody. If you're carrying the coffee for a person that is at a high level, that can
absolutely
connect you to other people, that's a
right.
very powerful coffee that you're holding.
Hey, listen, I'm getting coffee for Oprah, but Oprah knows a lot of people.
I mean,
That's right.
that's a very important coffee.
Right.
So I think that's very important to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely.
And as we were talking earlier, we were talking about media and so many people podcasting. Can you talk to me about your thoughts or feelings about the responsibility? Like so many kids are on social media doing things that later on may, not be so good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And to add to that, so many people are sharing information that they have no idea on.
Where it's going.
They're not a professional in, they're not an expert in, right? And they're sharing wrong information just because they want to be in front of a mic.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
I think that's definitely an issue. I do my best on my side to really, really be informed, especially when I'm interviewing people. It's like not only because I want to interview them, but also that I know their backgrounds, or like I really do as deep of a dive as I can, so that, like I know that I'm being responsible, putting that person, like on the show. But to your point, there are people out there that will abuse the system and really just, it's like a click game, right? It's like, oh, I can say this because it's controversial and I'll get clicks and I get love. And, like people, you're getting, like you're getting shine for the wrong reasons in a lot of ways, right? Luckily, YouTube especially has cracked down a lot on misinformation. Also language is being cracked down on more. But again, there still has to be that kind of responsibility factor from if you're going to be host of a podcast, you should take it seriously, because, once you put this out in the internet, they say the internet's forever, right? So anyone can find it. So if you're thinking about being like, as someone young in the game, hey, I just want to get on and stream my games and all this, great, do that. but still have that sense of, hey, down the line, when I want to get a job 15 years from now, and this employer can still pull up this freaking stream that I did, whatever, and all I was doing was just like talking mess, and like people were saying all this, and I was getting all the clicks and everything, and like I got half naked women on my streams and all that, but now my employer's looking at that. Well, yeah, back in this time, you were doing this. What was that all about? Oh, I was just young at the time. Yeah, but you know what? The internet's forever, buddy. So I don't know. We may have to pass on you for this job. Thinking about the ramifications of things, I think it's a big deal. I think more people should really take it a lot more serious. But you know, it is a fair game thing, right? Anybody with a computer can sign on for an account, and you can podcast, or you can, you know, like get on and stream or whatever. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I see the good in it a lot. There's so many people out there like me that are trying to just, you know, really celebrate the martial arts and go to a different level and really talk to people that just have all this history. But then there's the flip side, the people that just want to start mess, you know, that just,
and we will always have that, right? We will always have both,
in any
both sides in any industry.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you kind of speak to us a little bit on, you know, how things are evolving with AI and how we can start using AI as a tool responsibly as well? Because a lot of the content out there that's being created is now being created by AI, using AI. So there is going to be a shortage of real, authentic, human-made content.
Yeah.
You know, so can you speak on that?
Yeah, it's again another double-edged sword, because AI can help you and it can hurt, because again, to your point, AI takes away the opportunity sometimes, because now instead of having a host, I can just read a script in AI, and then the AI, you know, does the rest. I go on Chat GPT and I got a script. So why do I need a script writer? I go on this site and that site. The flip side is that it can make the workload easier. So for someone like me who's running a YouTube channel on their own, it is a little easier for me to go and get like say my keywords and thumbnail ideas from some AI stuff. And I do use some of those tools. But on the media scene and the radio scene, truly AI is being used in different ways. You have now, it's AI so advanced. Like I mentioned before, I'm a creative service director, and what that kind of entails is an imaging director. You guys are in radio, you know, but there's stuff usually that comes in between the songs, and we call those sweepers, and it just kind of like promotes the radio station along the way. So you've heard your favorite song, and now, you know, let's say Z100, New York's #1 hit station, boom, you'll hear that, and then it goes into the next song. So I'm one of those guys that creates those kind of affecting things and has the little promos too that will talk about things going on in the station. Now AI is so advanced where those sweepers, we used to use actual like listener voices. We take the time to go out and talk to listeners on the street and, hey, why do you love such and such station? Oh, I love the morning show. I love this. Now it's like, you don't have to do all that work. Now you can type into a computer, I'm Jane from freaking Jersey City, and I love Z100. And the AI will pop out a female voice that pretty much sounds like an authentic voice. And most people can't tell the difference. It's kind of crazy.
It is.
We're in that world now. And again, to your point, I think speaking on it, it's that double-edged sword. It's like, oh, I like the technology and it will come in handy sometimes. I hate the fact that it takes away from the authenticity sometimes, because I still like to go out and get the actual people's voices. I don't want to use computer-generated voices to do my work sometimes, because when it's on the air, I still feel that responsibility of putting the best quality product out. So for me personally, I'm not a big fan on that side, but I get why people do use it, because it does make your life easier. And honestly, speaking on one other thing, it's like now, whether people know it or not, in big markets, you do have a lot more personnel in the building, so you have more of a staff. In the smaller markets, a lot of these guys, to their credit, if you're a PD in like a smaller market, you don't have much of a staff. So you were relying on stuff being either pipelined into you from other markets, so say on the imaging side, or you may have to rely on the AI because you just don't have the bodies. So it's one of those things that can help, but it can definitely hurt too.
So here's a question for you, and because this is probably why people do it, right?
Right.
Have you ever struggled creatively to come up with content? And if you do, or if you have, what advice do you give to somebody who is struggling to come up? You know, they want to do it authentically. They want to be themselves, They want to put themselves out there, but they want to do it in a real way. What
Yeah.
advice do you give them?
That's a great question. There's a guy, speaking of Z100 is just on my mind, but that radio station, it was part of it's still part of the iHeart brand. I used to work with the production director there for many years before he retired. He had a really good it was something that he always told me. He was like, listen, as much as I love doing what I do, I need that downtime to just go sometimes read a good book, watch a movie, do something that's on the side where I can just kind of be the viewer or be the person receiving the information versus giving out the information. And that's sometimes where I'll have my best ideas. It's not always because of the radio influences. It might be something that I see on TV or overhear or read in a good book. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a factual book. Maybe even I'm reading the New York Times and there's something about this article and the way they wrote it where, oh, can I spin that in a radio way or in a way where it makes sense on radio? I do that a lot too, where even when I'm struggling with an idea for, say, a video on YouTube, if I see, especially with editing, right? So like, oh, that's a neat way they did that. How did they do that? How did they edit that that part that way? They segue into this one piece in the show to this piece, and then it's the modern age. So go Google it, go YouTube. Oh, transitions. How do you transition? Oh, I might be able to do that. Let me see if I can try this, and you start working that way. Sound effects too for me. I've seen like like different people have said the effects of sound is not to be overlooked because like you'll hear something and it's kind of subliminal and that makes you pay attention more. So I started thinking about, okay, if I can use like those sound effects where you hear them more in the movies and the TV world, because they have that impact. Even though it's visual, certain things will make you kind of just click your brains like, oh, wait. And all of a sudden it's a silent moment, but this sound effect made you just zone on what this one person's saying. So ways to kind of do that. And if you're looking for just kind of ideas, sometimes it may come from without rather than within, if that makes sense. So sometimes like look to other outlets to kind of get some ideas. I think that can help. At least it has
advice. Yeah, that's great advice. And also it's not to say, like you mentioned last time, it's not to say that you can't use these tools. You can use AI to give you some ideas.
Of course.
But allow yourself to be the one implementing these ideas.
Right.
Because there is a difference. We all know there's a difference between something that's written on paper and when you actually bring it to life and do it, right?
Absolutely.
So do the thing.
Don't just rely on it. Yeah.
Let's leave the actual doing and creating the real content for real humans instead of artificial intelligence that is only regurgitating information that we taught it.
Right. Yeah. Don't just rely on the AI, man, because there's a point where here's the thing with the AI, the blessing and the curse also of AI. I don't know how much you guys have gotten into it, but and more so for me on the YouTube side, when I'm coming up with different scripts and things, you'll plug things into AI, but it still spits things back to you like it's a little artificial. You got to go in and at least massage some of that stuff, or if you just copy paste, you really will look like as a robot writing this. It's like, people don't talk this way, or this doesn't really sound right, even though it's English and it's structured okay. It just sounds a little off. So you got to take the time, even to your point, to just do the extra step, do the extra work, and don't just copy paste all your stuff, or you just end up just being so generic. So I think people can see through that.
How can our listeners connect with you?
Oh, for sure. So a couple things. You can just check out the YouTube channel, Kung Fu Chronicles, on YouTube. That's
spell that out, because Chronicles is spelled with a K.
Yeah, I was just saying. So Kung Fu, KUNGFU, then it's KHRONICLES with a K. But also I'm on Instagram at Kung Fu Chronicles also. So that's the same thing. But yeah, those are the main ways if people can reach out to me. And I'm always available. If you're interested in training or anything like that.
Where's your classes? If somebody
so I teach a great question. So I teach Krav Maga at Burbank. Krav Maga is a school out here in Southern California area. I teach 3 days a week there. We also have different instructors at that place. So that is burbankkravmaga.com. Altogether. And then if you're interested in learning Eagle Claw, specifically Kung Fu, you can find me on the Ying Jow Pai website, which is just yingjowpai.com. That website, which is Master Shum's site. We have a list of all of our qualified instructors. So not just me, but a bunch of people both still teaching in the New York area and different states.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Just so we're clear, can you spell that out for?
Yes. So Ying Jow Pai is YINGJOWPAI.com. So
There goes that martial arts lingo again, right? I love it. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. We hope to have you again. Thank you.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, and hopefully next time I'll be around back on the East Coast and we can do it in person.
To have you in studio. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. And remember,
don't just live,
ascend,
because every moment counts.
We will see you guys next week. Same channel, same time, and same co-host, Marlene Cruz and Sifu Kwazi.
Nice.
I do it to him too.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.